Hey patrons, so yesterday I got like some dish, okay? I was looking up some information in Florida, and every time I go back to my original attack, it always takes me back to Florida. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Mar-a-Lago's in Florida. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Sea Org, Scientology, is in Florida. I don't think it's a coincidence that all of freaking Trump's top guys are in Florida. I mean, I just feel like it's all connected in, and it's been connected probably for decades. It all ties back into, as I've spoken before, Embry-Riddle, Florida, okay? That is where they train people to either be engineers and go work for the big weapons contractors, or you go into the Air Force, okay? So a lot of Florida feels like it has been, worked on for a long time. Probably a lot of infiltration, but when I really looked into the TI contracts the other day, I stumbled upon them when I was clearing some energy. I found the TI contracts, which are essentially kill contracts, in Florida, okay? In the millions. And it wasn't like one firm. It was like private firms that were in charge of a small amount of contracts. And when I say small, I'm talking 6 million per firm. So like when I found or kept hearing the numbers of these contracts coming in, they were around 62 million, okay? Or 80 million contracts. When I found the contracts, each firm has around like 6 million contracts, which is an insane amount of contracts. So you think, what are they doing right now? Is this part of Nazi America? Is this part of the KKK, white nationalist train? What is this? And so as I started to dig a little bit more yesterday, I ended up clearing a whole other area when I was looking at maps on Florida. And when I stumbled into a memory, okay, because I believe they now have like memory portals of a P.O.W. ship that I had seen during a Brian Laundrie reading off the coast of Florida, I then saw Matt Gaetz connected to that P.O.W. ship as somebody who signed off on the prisoner of war contracts, which are part of the TI contracts, which are also connected to Havana Syndrome, a weapons deal, Florida, and these specific military facilities are right across from Cuba, Havana, and these were deals that were made, okay? And so I'm seeing the congressman who signed off on these contracts is Matt Gaetz. And then I'm wondering why Matt Gaetz was around me like the entire time. I had dream interactions with Matt Gaetz. I feel like I had physical interactions with Matt Gaetz through the voice to skull systems. I've had interactions with him where I'm like, he knows who I am. Like, he really knows who I am. I've had interactions with other GOP. I've had interactions with Marjorie Taylor Greene through this headset, linked to some portal in the Everglades. I have had interactions with Marsha Blackburn. I've had interactions with Ted Cruz. I've had interactions with many of the Republican Party through these headsets. And then today, I'm looking up his wife, finding out her brother is a billionaire, owner of Oculus VR, which is Facebook Technologies, virtual reality headsets. Voice to Skull is a virtual reality headset. In fact, I was researching a lot of this stuff because the original one that I think I found was connected to a company called Epoch. Okay? And it was right after Air Force Technologies got sold to China out of the Silicon Valley. And it was within, I want to say, a month's time, they came up with this like fancy invisible headset, a neuro headset. And so now I'm finding out that Matt Gaetz is married to Miss Facebook, which is part of the metaverse, and Zuckerberg. And this is why I was getting into these battles with Zuckerberg. And then I was wondering, I had full-blown conversations and interactions with Zuckerberg and Matt Gaetz, and they're sitting in Congress together doing their little virtual fake reality show together, and Matt Gaetz is pretending to come at Zuckerberg for a form of gang stalking through one of his platforms, which was Instagram, that has resulted in bullying and suicides. But he's barely even touching on the deadly weapon system that now I'm realizing they both are in coordination with through his wife. And I had a dream interaction with him and his wife. I was right next to Joe Biden. They were making coffee together. I had no idea that his system was responsible for my attack. I had no idea that he was like another tier to the Zuckerberg, Elon Musk systems. But his district, okay, in Florida is the district of Pensacola and Tyndall Air Force Base, which makes perfect sense with the P.O.W. ships and why all of these megas all of a sudden have these P.O.W. flags on their cars and their houses. So it's like basically if you're not in line with their Nazi agenda, like you become a P.O.W. and you get put on their blacklists. And those are the blacklists of Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. And so I was put in on those blacklists in 2021 as part of the weapons deal. And I thought it was a Saudi Arabia weapons deal. It was Israel and United Emirates were part of that weapons deal, which makes sense because they literally were like buying and selling me, and I was being carted around to Israel, to Saudi Arabia, to United Emirates. I would be carted around to them while they worked on me. And that was all part of Trump's weapons deal, connected to Eric Prince's military contracts. And now part of that weapons deal is also Lockheed Martin Air Force jets, fighter jets, and Lockheed Martin is also a part of the targeted individual contracts, the weapons used on targeted individuals to suicide them. And that's how I got the information on Dick Cheney, because I was clearing energies and I kept running into him. And then I'm realizing it's directly connected to George W. and their freaking lists. I also found out that Senator John McCain was a victim of the GOP, and that Lockheed Martin is essentially who took him out with the brain cancer. And I've also gotten a lot of messages of the same technology being used on Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the justice for the Supreme Court, that kept going in and out of the hospital. So this is part of Trump's first, Nazi suicide attacks, which were carried out through Dick Cheney's and his contracts. So Dick Cheney and George W., their contracts are connected to Eric Prince, because that's all the same crew. So I was watching Eric Prince wheeling and dealing all these contracts with Donald Trump and with Jack Smith and with me. And I was like, what the hell is this? And now I'm understanding within these weapons deals, they're hiding other contracts under Penske and Pennzoil, which is all auto, and Prince is automotive. So that links back to Ford Motor Company. And that links back to Mitsubishi. Any of the auto guys, they're tied into that. Because Eric Prince's father, he patented one of the most famous, auto technologies, which was the mirror light. When you flip open the mirror, the light goes on. So that was one of his technologies. It was lighting and electricity. And now I'm wondering, they turned me into a form of an electrical source. They were harvesting my energy for one of their freaking Baghdad tours with either U.S. military, active duty, or paramilitary. And I thought I was making it up. Like, I was like, oh, this can't be real. But it feels real. I'm feeling them in tunnel systems. I'm feeling they're doing something pretty dark. I know where I am. I know my location. I know I'm in Baghdad. I can see a freaking tour bus or whatever the hell they're on. And I like blew out the electricity. And I'm like, he just did the same thing that his father did to the freaking mirror, to me. And they hooked me up to probably some freaking crazy space system or Air Force system, because I think I was moved through the MK Ultra Delta Force Secret Space Programs. And so now I'm like, but then a guy that I think I was actually like with in Baghdad, he followed me on Instagram and he was in the fucking desert in, I feel like, an army uniform. And I was like, and I had a lot of this kind of stuff going on. I had a lot of these kind of things where I was like suddenly get followed by somebody. And I was like, it feels like I was just around these kind of people. Like I in through this virtual reality headset. And so that all connects back to Florida, Matt Gaetz, and all of these contracts. And these are the P.O.W. contracts. And so they put Americans into the weapons seal as part of P.O.W. contracts being carried out through our own, I think, U.S. military, which is headed up by Mike Flynn, because he's no longer recognized by the United States of America. He has been stripped of his title and rank. Eric Prince, former Navy SEAL. Okay, he's Navy. So it would make sense if it's coming in, is Pensacola, is that a naval station? Like, I'm trying to like figure this out because I have seen Navy ships. I've seen myself connected to either a Marine ship, it might be Merchant Marines. I have seen a U.S. active duty military in a white uniform with a white cap. And I've checked on Scientology's uniforms and it doesn't match this uniform. So it's either Merchant Marines or it's Navy. And that was a ship that I was directly being attacked and targeted on. And I've been on another ship in the ocean. I know I've seen other ships that I've had interactions with military. And I've also been around the Angels. I've been around, is that Navy? The Angels. So those are, they're trying to like blank me out from everything right now. So that's the Navy's, version of Air Force, okay? And then a lot of these people are airmen, because if you go to Jack Teixeira and the classified docs that he just accidentally got a hold of for no reason and shared accidentally in a chat room, he was off of Connecticut. He was Coast Guard airman. Okay. There was something with the air guys, dude. I'm telling you. And so then I found out that Pensacola is a training. So then I found out that Pensacola is a training base. Okay. And they train all different military groups. So if Eric Prince is in there, he could get his hands on all these different military. I'm starting to believe that I was part of one of the original contracts that was greenlit by Matt Gaetz. And that's why Matt Gaetz is like constantly like in my vicinity. And that's how I knew it was going to be a pre-planned election, because me and Matt Gaetz were supposed to come together and work on an agenda together. And they said that he was going to have a very big role. And they asked me to be Donald Trump's VP, which I declined. So that's how I know everything was preordained. Not only that, but Elon Musk pretty much said that in his interview. So, I was just talking about this on another video in a little less detail on the channel. Elon tells you everything he's working on. So if he's doing a Nazi salute, that's what he's working on, is the Nazi agenda. He tells you everything. When he announced that he was going to legalize cocaine, he did legalize cocaine. He did it through the Neuralink system, the metaverse system. They were bumping off cops in the system. I was around them. They would come into my body and get a bump and leave. Manhattan cops. I know it sounds so out there, but it's part of the Avatar systems. And if you start researching the Avatar systems, I think it goes back to the Avatar movie And guess who funded that? Mr. Goldman Sachs, the Treasury Department, Steven Mnuchin guy, okay? Appointed by Donald Trump. So all connects back in. So I'd love to hear your feedback on this video. Thanks again so much for your patronage. I really, really greatly appreciate it. You're amazing. And I will talk to you all soon. Bye.